Hello and welcome to Inside Edition to discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. The Arab Gulf region is a strategic location that the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council are aware of. Our main focus today will be a book about the future challenges and prospects of security policies of the Gulf Cooperation Council. The book outlines the history of the establishment of the Council and the effect of security policies and change, which requires an urgent shift to a Gulf Union. The book also affirmed that security was one of the main reasons the Council was established, taking into consideration regional and international challenges. We will be discussing this matter with strategic and political researcher Dr. Shaikh Abdulla bin Ali AlKhalifa, who is the author of this book. But first, this report for more on the issues of GCC member states' security relations.
25th of 1981 marked the official initiation of the Gulf Cooperation Council, bringing together the Arabian Gulf countries in joint action out of their awareness of their special relations, common characteristics and similar ruling policies based on mutual religion and traditions. The GCC states managed to make great accomplishments by bolstering cooperation and integration among member states in different fields, ranging from politics, economy, defense and security, and by harnessing efforts and capabilities to back international causes and brotherly and friendly countries.
I'm very much in favor of regional cooperation, because this is absolutely what you need, because the region is in turmoil, there are some strategic threats, and you need to cooperate in order to get things right in this part of the world. You face huge challenges and you have to deal with them, and that can only be done through cooperation.
Such relations among the GCC states, with their shared deep-rooted history, contributed to launching a strategic partnership that strengthened them politically and economically and makes them more capable of influencing the global decision-making process within a unified entity.
So there's always been a strategic and a security-related aspect to the GCC, I think even more important than the economic side. And they'd been planning and developing interoperable technologies as well as structures so that their military forces can be combined if the need ever came, and they could work together for collective defense. Essentially, in 2011, for the very first time, the Operation Peninsular Shield Force was established and went into action when it became clear that it wasn't just demonstrations here, but also the hand of Iran. And I think that the GCC played a fantastic role in ensuring that Iran was going to be deterred and wouldn't try to actually get physically involved in Bahrain directly.
The latest coordinated and unified stance taken by the GCC countries towards many pressing issues and files send a clear message that the GCC countries are capable of defending their interests and gains of their peoples and have the will of taking effective action against any threats to their security. They have a great responsibility to preserve regional security and stability and stand united against plots of chaos and destruction. The role of this entity is undeniable, as the GCC is not a bystander when it comes to regional and international security. GCC has always had this mark in the region, as it has always been part of all initiatives and efforts to deal with the fast-paced developments across the area, to enhance joint cooperation and coordination in the face of all threats and challenges, in addition to achieving the best interests of all countries. Regarding its regional role, the GCC policy towards crises in the region from Yemen, Libya and Iraq to Syria is based on clear principles, with the top priority being the preservation of security and stability of Arab countries and standing beside them in their efforts to realize interests of their peoples and serve their aspirations through development, stability and progress.
Welcome back. With us in the studio is Sheikh Abdulla bin Ali. Thank you very much for joining us and taking some time out.
Thank you.
Sheikh Abdulla, let's get straight to the point. Your book hit the shelves, as to say, and it was very interesting reading about the different aspects and points of view that you basically discussed in it. From a historic point of view, can you tell us about the challenges that the Gulf countries basically faced before establishing the GCC and the reason why this initiative was taken?
Actually, the security is very imperative for the nation, state and society. Gulf state had faced or suffered actually from security dilemma for quite a long time. When the British protection treaty had ended in 70s, actually, beginning of the 70s, Gulf state had faced challenge of the security because it's the smallest country in the region, facing facing the big actually dominant regional power, which is Iran and Iraq at that time. They were in ideological rivalry and competition in different fields.
To even take over the area, basically,
And they tried to dominate on the region end of 60s. When the British announced they leave the area and they ended off the Treaty of Protection.
This is not a very long time ago. I mean, if we really think about it, the 60s. A lot of things happened at that time. I mean, you have 1948, the overtaking of the Palestinian lands, and then you have the beginning of the Persian Empire and so on. So what did these things actually affect the region, the tribal region of the Arabian Peninsula? Yeah,
actually, the area it was actually hot at that time. And when the British tried to leave the area, we saw actually the power or the Shah tends to involve in the GCCs or Gulf state at that time, even in Saudi Arabia. And so that actually the deadline to us. And we ended with the formation of the Gulf State Council.
Beautiful, beautiful. In the introduction of your book, you mentioned that there is a firm link between national security and regional security. Can you tell us more about what that link means and why it's so important?
National security, it's a big factor of regional security. But what I mean, the regional security is extended more than Gulf state, including Iran, Iraq, and Pakistan, India. All we participate in this region.
Exactly. Especially that we have shared waterways even
between
us.
Hormuz and Arabian Sea, and all
the Indian Ocean.
Exactly. This is very important. And this what consists of the regional security.
And we know that I mean, militarily speaking, that most of the time the weakest points of a country where there's the most protections are the waterways, because of the unpredictability of waters, because of the many hiding opportunities or whatever it is. It's always an area that has to be protected very well. And we know that Bahrain is basically the entrance to the GCC or to the Arabian Peninsula when it comes to the waterways, and they and the United Arab Emirates are basically the water protectors when it comes to that point of view. Do you see that this was something that was designated from the beginning of the council being made?
The geostrategic of the Gulf, it's very important, and all the Gulf states have been protected from the beginning. I mean, but it's protecting the waterway. It's very important. especially we are very close to the sea. I mean, for example, Riyadh is the center of the Saudi Arabia, which is in the middle of Saudi Arabia. But it's away from 400 and 450 kilometers from the water.
Yes.
But if you look for Manama and Abu Dhabi, Doha, Kuwait, Muscat, all they are facing on the waterway.
Exactly. And there are challenges around it. I mean, you're talking about Iran, one of the biggest challenges facing our region right now. I mean, from the 1960s until now, we're still fighting.
Well, actually, it's before that.
Yeah.
We're having a threat of the Iranian, and even the Persian, before Shah Rida Khan took the power in 1925, we're facing also the problem with the intent of the Persian in the Gulf. But they cannot approve their right, and they always mention, for example, we are having this land or GCC state or Gulf state belong to them, but they didn't approve that.
Yes.
Especially this is Arabic or Arabian land.
Yes, yes. Actually, I'm going to ask you about that a little bit more. Was this a religious thing that they actually wanted the holy sites of Islam, or was it a political thing? Because the actual asking for the lands didn't come during the Shah, it actually came right after the Shah. No. So it wasn't really a religious thing. What is your comment on that?
Well, actually, this is escalated more after 1979, when Imam Khomeini taking the power. But he talking about he's the leader of, it's not the general Muslim, it's only part of the Muslims, which is he's talking, he's the leader of Shia, and he can provide them
with
protection and all this issue, what he meant. But he tried different aspect what we had in that time. He explored the revolution, which is it was harming our security.
Yeah, and that's probably what the GCC countries saw at that time, and that's why they needed to protect themselves by doing this.
Exactly.
You highlighted also in your book the fact that terrorism has no definite identity and is not associated with a certain religion. Now, we know that the GCC countries headed by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are fighting terrorism not just physically, but actually to the core, the ideologies of terrorism. Can you tell us what you meant by it not having a certain religion?
Well, the terrorism is old concept, but it's a new phenomenon. In every era we have terror, but we are facing now a global terrorism and international terror. It's backed by countries. For example, Iran backed or supported Hezbollah and
the
Houthi militias, and this is destabilize the security in the region. And it's harming the GCC directly.
Correct. And do you agree when we say that the fear of terrorism is not just how dangerous it is or how unpredictable what they will do, but basically because you don't know where it's going to hit next? Is that the fear from terrorism?
Yeah, exactly, because the counter-terrorism is very important for these countries, for GCC. But every time they develop a new technique in terrorism, and now we have cyber, for example, terror, and it's not the traditional terror what we had before.
Yes, true. How do you value the current efforts that are exerted by the GCC? As you said, the counterterrorism is important for us, and recently we were, Saudi Arabia and the other GCC countries, UAE and Bahrain, have announced the formation of the Islamic Counterterrorism Coalition, which is headed by General Rahil Sharif. How do you value these exerted efforts by the GCC states to combat terrorism on legal, religious, media, and financial levels?
Well, actually, let's back to the event in brief. Actually, terrorism had attacked Saudi Arabia in 1979, beginning of 79, which is some terrorists occupied the holy mosque in Mecca.
Yes, yes.
And for the decade of 80, the attempt of assassination of late Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Jabir Ahmed,
Yes.
and some explosion and hijacking of the airplane in Kuwait. In the era of 90s, here in Bahrain, we have some explosion.
Yeah.
And in Khubar in 1996.
The explosion of the compounds
Yes.
and the buildings, yeah.
All this actually, it's very critical for us.
And terrorist attacks.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. But if you look for the legislation of the Gulf state, they try every time to pass a new order or a new to combat the terrorism.
Yes.
If you remember here in Bahrain in 2013, when National Assembly is held,
Yes.
and they pass a new rules for combating the terrorism. And also Saudi Arabia, Emirates, now they issue a list of the terrorists.
Yes.
This is very good to counter the combat of terrorists. For the religion,
Yeah.
Gulf state actually they try to clarify the role of the religious.
Yes.
And a religious cleric actually,
Yeah.
to don't use the mosque or
Yes.
different different Islamic
don't stand and say talk about
and in the media they stop to recruit the extremism.
Yes.
In the media. And for finance, GCC have stopped the founding of the terrorist supply, actually.
Exactly. When we come back to a couple of these things, for instance, when you talk about the religious agendas now, as you said, Bahrain, the UAE, and even Saudi Arabia have basically issued laws that prevent any religious, let's say, preacher to basically use his pedestal on or go onto the microphone and talk to them about jihad, about anything that has to do with terrorism or anything like that. At the same time, we hear that there are a lot of changes. We even see it on the news, and we know factually there are a lot of changes. Saudi Arabia is one of the most conventional countries in our area here, and that has been known for a while. But now we know, for instance, that it is going now to the moderate Islamic way, as announced by the Crown Prince, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Also about a year back, and also one time before that, we had Shaikh of Al-Azhar here in Bahrain, Ahmed Tayyib, and he is also known as being one of the moderate scholars of our era. So we also see that we are following this, that Islam, this is the correct Islam, following the moderate way, having affection and empathy with other people, with other religions and so on. So do you see that from the religious point of view, that is also the war they are going through, by basically making people understand the moderate way is the correct way?
Well, actually this is the role which is Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he declared it. And he said from 1979, we are suffering different attitude actually of the Islam.
Yes.
And he said from now we have to clarify the good Islam, and this is our role actually to know all the world. what is the real Islam.
Yes, and that cannot just come from the people. It has to come from our governments, because
Actually,
our governments are the role models.
Government and society and institute, university, all this what we have to declare it to the world.
Yeah. To rectify another thing, when we come to the media, as you mentioned, the recruitment of Daesh, the recruitment of Al-Qaeda came through media outlets. And a lot of people think when they hear media, they think television, they think radio. It goes farther than that by so much. We're talking video games, we're talking social media, we're talking about things that were harmless before that now families and mothers and fathers are afraid for their children. So how do you feel that media, the impact of media on terrorism, was it good, was it bad, is there something that can be done?
Well, actually the media, it's helped the terrorists.
Yeah.
And we saw when, for example, some terrorists came from Europe.
Yes.
They actually they come through the Facebook and all the social media,
yeah.
And this is the important to limit the actually the way of this social media.
Yeah, yeah, understood. And your final point was on the financial levels. Now we know that the financing of terrorism has come from prominent people from different countries. It has come on so many different platforms that we cannot count. And right now is the time where Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the other GCC countries are basically putting a stop to these financial or financing these terrorism by putting, let's say, a magnifying glass on the flagged financial accounts. Is that something that you find is important, that the money is seen where it goes?
Yes. There is difference between how you contribute in financial and to support the terrorist. Some countries, is not GCC countries, they took the money through different income, and they spend it to supporting the terrorist in different way also.
Yeah.
But for example, for the Gulf state, when they try to contribute in social I mean poor society and outside of the Gulf state, they have to go in through the line, certain line.
True.
Is not giving the
it's not easy for them anymore.
Society.
How did you tackle this issue in your book?
Well, this is taking actually a chapter.
Yeah.
To clarify what we had here in the Gulf to facing this problem.
Bullet points.
Yeah. And I hope the reader to give me the feedback.
All right.
Inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Well, moving on to the next point, how do you value the participation of GCC states in their current alliances? We know that there are some alliances that are a little bit on hold, let's say, right now, but new coalitions have been formed. So how do you value the participation of the GCC states in the current alliances to fight terrorism in the region?
Gulf states, they have participated in the combat terrorism, and they have participate also in the drive against the Daesh, Al-Qaeda, because we are suffering from them.
Yes.
Some blast or some explosion recently Gulf state had from Daesh, which is in mosque in eastern Saudi Arabia, 2 years ago, and in Sawabar Masjid, mosque of Al-Sadiq in Kuwait.
Yes.
Also in Jizan, I think in Jizan, yes, or south of Saudi Arabia, we had blast on the mosque.
Yes.
It's also it's declared actually by Daesh,
Yes.
and Gulf state participate on the campaign against Daesh,
Yeah.
and they take a role. But now the center of actually in the Riyadh to counter terrorism,
Yes.
it's very important.
Yeah. And it's also important that the other GCC countries participate in it, because everybody has their own expertise.
Yes.
We know that Bahrain, being an open society and a coexisting society, they have basically taken a lot of the blows that have come from Iran and also from Daesh. And a lot of people here are basically trying to fight off the ideas that are being fed to their children, to their relatives. As you said, the weaker links of society, people who don't have money, people who have self-esteem issues, these people are the ones that are most susceptible. Do you think that here in Bahrain, from your point of view, do we have a good system to provide rehabilitation, to provide help for these people?
Yes.
Yeah.
In Bahrain, we have let's say a system to rehabilitate the suffered from the terrorists.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean we are not having like such of these.
Yes.
We have to continue
Exactly.
actually to counter this thought.
Yes, the ideologies.
Yeah.
Is this something that should start off in schools? We always have this discussion when I have some guests. We always talk about schools, that the school education system has to help the students to understand that Islam is not that kind of ideology. How about if it's someone that's not in school anymore? How about if it's someone that is basically just weak?
Well, actually, this is the role of the society.
Yeah.
Role of mosque.
Yeah.
Role of the cleric, Islamic religious, media. All this we are sharing in the society, and we have to stop all the terrorists to take or to use the ideologic method for them.
Yes, yes. We're still in the same area when we talk about Daesh, Al-Qaeda, and all these terrorist organizations, Hezbollah as well. When we talk about Al-Qaeda and then we see Daesh, there's a big difference in how volatile and how violent they are. And at the end of the day, when you look at both of them preach the religion of Islam. And both of them have nothing to do with the religion of Islam. I mean, they used to call themselves, Daesh used to be called in the media over and over again, the Islamic State, the Islamic State. And then a lot of media people, myself included, I refuse to call it the Islamic State because it has nothing to do with it. Do you think that people in the media should take these steps? They should make these first steps where they show officially, no, this has nothing to do with Islam. Not Al-Qaeda is Islamic, not Daesh is Islamic. They have nothing to do with it.
Well, actually, I never call Daesh ISIS. And Al-Qaeda, they wear the coat of the Islam.
Yeah.
It's only by the name. And to stop these terrorist group, actually, we are to clarify the role of the Islam, the good Islam.
Yes.
Is not the harm Islam or terrorist Islam.
Because there is no terrorism. There is no terrorism in Islam.
Exactly. We have the this religion have been teach us the rule.
Yeah.
The religion. It's not the terrorist. We are not in the ages past.
Yes. Well, would you tell us more about the Iranian nuclear issue and its expected threats to our regional security? I mean, what is your view about the recently announced American strategy towards it?
Iranian nuclear started in 1974.
Yeah.
When Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was in the power. and they used the German technology, and it stopped in 1979 when Imam Khomeini has to come to the power. If we look for Iraq, they start the program in 1977, and it's destroyed by Israeli strike, airstrike in 1980-81. But when these two countries have involved to Iraq-Iranian war in 1980 to 1988, after that the Iranian have attempted to establish the nuclear program again. And you know, at that time was sanction, American sanction or Europe, Western sanction on them. So they go to Russia. And they take the technology. And they educated their scientists and so on. And also in China, North Korea. But the problem is, we all remember Chernobyl in Ukraine in 1986. This Bushehr is the same plant. Safety, no safety in this plant. So in the Gulf, as I mentioned in my book, the Bushehr plant, it's away from Manama, around less than 100 mile. So it's close to us than the capital, Tehran. And we are, all the Gulf states have been drinking the water from the sea. The water. If any pollution, then basically we got it. And the main, which is Iranian, have been threatening our countries, our GCC countries. So they develop different kind of missiles. Ashura, Zilzal, Sijil. Between the range, actually extending the range between 600 kilometer to 1,200. So they cover all the Middle East country. And that's the biggest threat. How about the American strategy towards it now? Well, I'm actually with this strategy because we have all worked together to stop the influence of the Iranian, to stop their attempts to dominate on our region when they develop actually the nuclear, and they try to convince us this peaceful use actually, but this is obviously it's doesn't make any sense, because how you use it, and you don't let the IAEA Atomic Power Association to investigate on your construction or to plant. And basically test. I mean, if you look at it from a medical point of view, we have some of the best medical institutions in the Middle East. We have some of the best in the Asian area. I mean, if you're talking about medical studies in the nuclear field, then somebody is probably already working on it, and it just doesn't make sense not to share, because the scientific community, as you know, is always sharing information. Because when it comes to the medical issues, when it comes to basically peaceful use of uranium or nuclear medicine or and stuff like that, sharing this information is important, not just to the citizens but to the whole humanity. It comes to the core of existence. Agriculture is affected, animal life is affected, everybody is affected. So not letting, as you said, the IA. Because if you hide your program, that means something. Why you don't let this IAEA to know about it, investigate the plant? Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, they declare they're going to have a plant, which is I think in 2022. Emirates built by South Korean. It's done by, obviously, under the control of IAEA. And the problem, you know, if you use this atomic or a nuclear, it's not harm us. It's extend to beyond the Middle East.
Even your own people.
Exactly.
It's not just us, exactly. And sometimes that seems to be maybe a point where we it's not being scared, but where we are taking a step back, because Iran is a kind of country that until now what we are seeing, they don't even care if this will affect their own people. So what about us?
Well,
they care less about that.
Because the regime, the Iranian regime, they don't care about them, about their citizens.
Yes.
They care about how to obtain or to have a nuclear weapon
or interfere in other people's issues. Yeah, that's what they care about, exactly. Now, one of the major things that Iran is facing, one of their problems, or they're not facing basically, is the sectarianism within their society. And the dangers of sectarianism can be a genuine threat for any country's security. And can you tell us more about that and how foreign interference can play a vital role in escalating things like sectarianism in our region, not just Iran?
Well, sectarianism, actually, we are not suffering from that before 2003.
Yeah.
2003, when the Iraq government have been fallen. So Iranian, they take the role to influence in GCC.
Yeah.
Especially Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain.
Yeah.
They used the sectarianism to involve their interest actually to our society.
Yes, especially that these three countries specifically are close to Iran, and they have basically Sunni and Shia sects. Do you feel that, or from your point of view, is that the reason? I mean, before 2003, before even 2000, it was harmony. I mean, until now, to this very day, we live here in Bahrain, and we hear how people say, it wasn't like this. We used to be friends. We used to do this and that. Is it really that bad that they have influenced the sectarianism to that extent, where people actually don't want to live with each other?
No. Actually, the sectarianism. This is the reason to, if some country like Iran to put a fuel on that.
Yeah.
To support this idea. The Iranian government, they don't care about your society. They care about their ideology or their viewpoint to divide your society, and this is actually what we have to fight against that.
Yes, yes. Well, you also mentioned that the Gulf states are recommended to diversify their international alliances and establish a foundation for constant Gulf foreign dialogue, which in some kind of way a little bit has already started, like the American-Saudi dialogue that happened last year, and we have the Manama dialogue where we have so many countries coming in. But what are the objectives of this approach from your point of view?
Gulf state was and still ally of United States.
Yes.
And but in during Arab Spring in 2011, the Gulf states have felt lack of support from United States and some of European countries. They stand against us.
Yeah.
Gulf state, actually Gulf Council state, have to seek for another alliances. They're right.
Yeah.
They go to Russian, China, and this is actually the raised power now in the world. They lead it, and for economic Gulf state, they go to India.
Yes.
And Brazil, which is they have very big economical.
Yes, yes. And also we see that the alliances between the Arab and the Gulf states have also been strengthened. I mean, the alliances with Jordan, with Egypt.
Yes, Saudi Arabia actually, actually they do the good thing actually when they start to have the umbrella of around 40 more than 40 now.
Yes.
For Asafat al-Hazm.
Yes.
They station in Riyadh, and they support actually the peaceful.
Yes.
The peaceful issue in the region.
Yeah.
Against some countries who supporting the terrorists.
Yes, exactly. Now, before we get to the end of our show, you just mentioned Asafat al-Hazm, which is basically the name of one of the operations that was taking place in Yemen in order to restore hope to it and then keep the sovereignty of its legitimacy. The fact of the matter is that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE have lost a lot of their soldiers in a war that they went into to protect one of the GCC countries, in a war where they went to protect one of the borders of Saudi Arabia and the entrance of the GCC countries. And war is always an ugly concept when it comes to the actual facts. It's not. It's a very simple word, but the intelligence, the military strategies, the information, the involvement of the internet, the hearsay from people. They said this and they did this. This is all factors into the things that our leaders have to think about. How many casualties are there? Are there people getting aid? And these are the things that they tried to keep all together. From your point of view, have the GCC countries, as you said in your book, been able to keep that intact? I mean, providing aid here, providing strategies here, helping the countries, also protecting at the same time. Was it a coalition that was successful?
Gulf State, they are successful actually in Asafat al-Hazm.
Yes.
And when they start to stop the Iranian influence in south of Saudi Arabia, and it's harming us also, and for the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. Yes. The geostrategic of the Yemen country, it's very important. Yes. It's not for us. For the commercial way actually.
The whole eastern area.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we in the Gulf state actually, the hope of the operation hope of Yemen in 2016, I think, they Saudi Arabia, King Salman, the stadium of Holy Mosque, they order to have King Salman Center to help the operation in Yemen.
Yeah. And is there anything that you'd like to add now at the end of this show?
Well, actually, I would like to thank you, for to host me in this show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for being with us, Sheikh Abdullah, and thank you, dear viewers. We would like to thank you for watching us and hopefully see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.